It's raining outside. It's raining outside. It's pouring. There's a nor'easter. Oh my god, it's raining winds. It's raining winds in PNC. That's correct, ladies and gentlemen. It's raining winds in PNC Dynasty. Let's go. Okay. You're listening to the PNC Dynasty podcast, and it's your boy, it's Smith. It's only me today. The rest of the guys, they dropped the ball once again, so I'm here to pick up the slack. That's usually how this goes. But nonetheless, welcome back. I don't even know what episode number this is. I'm not even going to try to look it up because that's a waste of my time. But we've got a number of things that we want to go through today. We're going to go through some of the matchups in PNC Dynasty, some of the big performances in that time span throughout the NFL, and just go through some players that I was really surprised by. So let's jump right into it here. But let's just go down the matchups. You go to pncdynasty.com, you go to the matchups tab, and then you also go to week 7. You'll see all those matchups listed for us. We'll just go straight into it here. Let's go to the first one. Judge Judy and Pity Party. And it's funny because in the chat that we have on Sleeper, it wasn't really Derek who had the pity party as much as Kyle Pitts did well. It was Andy who tried to throw a little pity party for himself because he said, "Oh, I got the points for median, but I lost to Derek." Well, guess what, Andy? Derek's a very good team, and he did it without Miles Sanders playing an entire game. So you know what, Derek? Bravo. Bravo for kicking Andy's ass in this matchup. Almost 20 full points, and you did it with Miles Sanders on a gimpy leg. I mean, what a job, right? So good job, Derek. Let's just go through some of these performances. Andy actually won the QB matchup. He won the matchup between Brady and Rodgers. I mean, that's a big deal. You won by 2 points, a little less than 2 points, granted, but can't make an excuse there. Andy's running back's going to be an issue, though. Dalvin Cook is on a bye this most recent week, so you give him a bit of a break there. But Chuba Hubbard, what do we make of the Panthers? I mean, Sam Darnold is, for all intents and purposes, a pumpkin at this point. He is done. Giving snaps to XFL MVP PJ Walker, who may be better than Sam Darnold at this point. Probably not. But the fact we're having to have a discussion about it kind of tells you everything you need to know about where Sam Darnold is. Part of the appeal for Chuba, I don't know. I'm not going to try to know. Is, he had some receptions early on after McCaffrey got hurt. And not to say that he can't be that guy anymore, but Chuba Hubbard needs to get volume in order to succeed. This is a couple of weeks now where it's been underwhelming. He had that one good week, that one really good week. It was great, but we needed to see a little bit more. We've seen other rookie running backs like Elijah Mitchell, Khalil Herbert perform over multiple games. We need to see that from Chuba. So it is what it is. And then Antonio Gibson, I mean, dealing with shin splints. All the doctors I read on social media, on the interweb, they say that he's not going to be anywhere near as effective until he's fully healthy. So the Washington football team should put this guy in the injured reserve. They're not going to because they've convinced themselves that they can compete. God bless them. That's not going to happen this year, and they're going to irresponsibly utilize Antonio Gibson. They're going to give him 2/3 of the snaps. I got to look at the exact difference between what Antonio Gibson did versus what J.D. McKissic did. So let's look at the snap counts while we're here. Okay, snap count for Antonio Gibson was 42%. Wow. That's not great. But it makes sense because he's hurt, right? If he's hurt, it makes sense that he's not going to get as many snaps. And J.D. McKissick, 64%. Okay, so there's your answer. He's not even the lead back because he's hurt. Not because he's not good, but because he's hurt. And when you're hurt, you lose your efficiency. You're not the same player, bottom line. And when you combine his inefficiency over the last couple of weeks with the fact that he's not getting as many snaps, not a great situation, right? Not a great situation. So we don't like that situation. Dalvin Cook has to be Dalvin Cook. Otherwise, Andy is in a lot of trouble because it's not like you can just insert Alexander Madison in there when Dalvin Cook's healthy. And now that he doesn't have Tony Pollard, he loses that extra running back that he has as depth. So again, every time I come on this show, I talk about the importance of depth. And I got to be honest, I thought Andy had a fair bit of depth, but he kind of lucked into Chuba Hubbard being a reality. And, he's got Brandon Bolden on the bench, but do you ever feel comfortable starting Brandon Bolden? No. Do you ever feel comfortable starting Boston Scott? We'll get to Miles Sanders in a second. No. So it's going to be a real challenge for Andy moving forward, I think, with his running back specifically. Now, his wide receivers, his tight ends, different discussion. But yeah, Andy definitely is probably on the lookout for a running back come the trade deadline. At least I would. You're in the playoffs. He's currently in 5th place. He's got a 1-game lead over Ryan for 6th place, and he's trailing Badger by 1 game. You got to go for it. And got to go get another running back, Andy. That's just my opinion. Now, as for Derek's team, he got production from almost everybody. I mean, Odell Beckham is done. I'm sorry. At least on the Browns, he's done. In seasonal formats, I have no issue dropping him. Baker Mayfield's not 100%. This is a running team as is. Jarvis Landry is a target hog when healthy. Remains to be seen if he'll be okay. It sounds like he will. But don't like the situation for Odell. Now, if he does get traded, let's say to the 49ers or, I don't know, the Colts, some team that needs a wide receiver that can be a pass-heavy team. Oh, do I love that. I love that for Odell. But the moment Kevin Stefanski walked as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, we knew that was going to be a difficult situation. Odell was going to have to win on efficiency. And ever since coming back from this injury, outside of one pretty decent game, the efficiency has not been there. So not a fan of Odell. But like I said, everyone that wasn't hurt in this game for Derek did pretty well. Terry McLaurin, he's healthy. I was concerned that this hamstring would continue on and linger on, and wasn't a big fan of McLaurin in DFS, wasn't a big fan of McLaurin in seasonal leagues, but of course in Dynasty you're going to start him, and he delivered. Devontae Adams, 15 points might be his floor. His floor and Travis Kelce's floor are the safest in football. And this is why I think Devontae Adams is the number 1 wide receiver in football. I think he's better than Stephon Diggs. I absolutely think he's better than Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is not an alpha wide receiver. The alpha wide receiver in Kansas City is Travis Kelce. The reason why Tyreek Hill wins is because he is so much faster and athletic than everyone else. It's such a unique profile because of that. But when you have these big cornerbacks and these safeties that are shadowing Tyreek Hill and virtually double teaming him, that's going to open up other opportunities for Kelce in the passing game. And I love Kelce, but you'd rather him beat you than Tyreek Hill because the chances of Travis Kelce breaking off an 80-yard passing touchdown significantly lower than that of Tyreek Hill, right? So that's what makes Travis Kelce so attractive. He is the alpha in Kansas City. As electric as Tyreek Hill is, he's a Z receiver. He's not an X. He's not an alpha. Okay? So we love that. Kyle Pitts. I mean, what more do we say? Now, I brought this up on Twitter. Who's a better dynasty asset in PPR leagues? Is it Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase? got a lot of people saying Jamar Chase, but you know what? I think there's a case for Kyle Pitts, especially if you're in a tight end premium league that we're in. I think I might take Pitts. I mean, Jamar Chase, yeah, he's a wide receiver. He's like a top 3 receiver in Dynasty. I don't know if I would take him over Jefferson quite yet. Justin Jefferson, maybe. CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that's who we're talking about. And then maybe A.J. Brown. Those are your top 4 receivers. A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson in Dynasty. It's very close. Kyle Pitts, for me, is the very clear tight end 1 in Dynasty formats. Like, I've seen enough. He is their X. He is their alpha. Just like Travis Kelce's the alpha in Kansas City, Kyle Pitts is the alpha in Atlanta, okay? Calvin Ridley is a fake alpha. Fake alpha. I don't know what's going on with Calvin Ridley. I hope everything's okay. But he took off that week in London for personal reasons. I'm not going to get into why that is. I don't know. So I'm not going to speculate. But he just doesn't look right. He doesn't. And Kyle Pitts is lining up as a wide receiver. So again, like Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts, and also like Mike Gesicki, who we'll talk about later. Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver. He just happens to play the tight end position. So, the one thing you're worried about with Derek's team, again, is the running back situation, right? He loses Miles Sanders, and that's always a concern. I still like Derek's team, but he is starting Devin Singletary as his second running back. Devin Singletary is not even the number 1 running back in his own offense, and he's not a good pass catching back either. So, look, as much as Derek helped himself with the Joe Mixon trade, he still doesn't have depth on the bench. Maybe Gio Bernard, maybe. I actually would start Gio Bernard over Devin Singletary in a PPR league. I would. But that'll be for tomorrow's podcast, if we have one. So overall, a very convincing win by Derek, and Andy does get the points for median win, but both those teams do have some issues, and they're not my number 1 team. They're not even my number 2 team. They're more in the 3 to 4 range for me at the moment in the league. Next matchup here between the 2 worst teams in the league, in my opinion. You got Leo and Chris. And you know what, Leo? I got to give you a round of applause. You capitalized on D'Ernest Johnson's 1 or 2 weeks of greatness. And I have to be honest, he was great. He looked a lot like James Robinson, right? Not all that explosive, not very fast, but he breaks tackles. And that's a different kind of skill set. I love to target athletic running backs. D'Ernest Johnson's not athletic, but he does break tackles. And I don't know if we account for that enough within how we evaluate a player's athleticism, because there absolutely isn't a facet of athleticism there that isn't accounted for in speed, agility, burst. So, that's something I need to look into more is, how do we quantify player athleticism when we know they can break tackles? Is it BMI? I don't know. Let's actually take a look at D'Ernest Johnson's BMI. My hypothesis here is that D'Ernest Johnson has a very high BMI. Okay, so his 10th percentile body mass index. Never mind. So he might just be a talented player that we can't account for on the athletic scale. I mean, he ran a 4.86 40. That's absolutely atrocious. Bottom tier burst score, bottom tier agility score. He did bench press 20 times, which is about average. So again, there's nothing that stands out about D'Ernest Johnson from a statistical standpoint, but you watch that game and he's breaking tackles, he's moving the offensive line, he's pushing back defensive linemen. I don't know how you quantify that, but it was productive. And he got 25 points out of Dearness Johnson. And 25 points, that won the game for Leo for all intents and purposes. Dearness Johnson comes close to what his projection was. I think was 12 points, 13 points. This is a lot closer game. James Conner, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. He is the 2020 version of Todd Gurley, 2021 version of 2020 Todd Gurley. I mixed it up. He's not that efficient on the ground. He's not. And he doesn't look particularly explosive like he used to. Injuries have caught up to him, and that's a valid excuse. It's not like he's just degraded because he's just not good anymore. But look, as long as he gets these touchdowns, he's going to be productive. And do we want to predict touchdowns moving forward? No. Do I like touchdown rate as a predictor of success? No. But it's something that he does. And we can't sit here and deny that. I mentioned before, Calvin Ridley, he is a fake alpha. It sucks. It really sucks. Crappy situation. I saw some people rank him within the top 3 dynasty wideouts. I never believed that. I thought he absolutely was within the top 10, maybe even the top 8 wide receivers in the sport from a dynasty standpoint. That has sailed. That ship is gone. Confidently in the wide receiver 2 range for me, more in like the 15 to 20 wide receiver range in dynasty formats moving forward, but you absolutely have to adjust expectations. Jarvis Landry, I don't know what's going on with the health there, but he is the target leader. He does get a majority of the target share when he is on the field. So you absolutely love that when healthy. More of a wide receiver 3 for me this year because, again, it's a run-first offense. But when they do pass, he's absolutely the guy they go to. Mike Kasich. I always knew that Mike Kasich was in this Kyle Pitts range of tight ends, not in terms of talent, but he's not that good of a blocker. But you know what? We love that for fantasy. We love bad blocking tight ends because it means they're only going to be used on receiving plays. So they have less opportunity to get injured. All right, TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, those are some of the best blocking tight ends in the sport. Hawkinson been dealing with a knee injury, though it didn't really affect him that much this week. George Kittle, this is 2 years in a row now where he's playing almost every snap because he's so good at blocking, and then he gets injured, and he's on injured reserve. Is it because of his blocking? I don't know, but it can't help. Right? More opportunity to get injured. Don't like that. Kasich's one of the worst blocking tight ends in the sport. That's why I like him. He's so bad at one facet of the game that it actually increases his fantasy value. I mean, that's kind of a galaxy brain moment, right? We should have had this conclusion. We should have seen from last year that Kasich is one of Tua's favorite targets. Tua looked good, by the way. But yeah, this guy's the real deal. He's a tight end 1 moving forward. He's a free agent at the end of the year. Imagine if he goes to a team that is a pass-first team. Let's think about some of the teams that he could go to. I mean, he could stay with Dolphins, but they seem to not be interested in giving him a contract extension. Oh my. What about the Cowboys? Oh boy. I know they have Schultz. I know they have Schultz, and I know that God, I can't even remember the other guy's name right now. Blake Jarwin. But my God, and Mike Gesicki with Dak Prescott. Whew. That would be wild. Corey Davis, he's falling into that Brandon Cooks category of receiver where it just does not matter. Does not matter who his quarterback is. He's going to produce. One of the analysts that I heavily follow in fantasy football is Matt Kelly. And he has this theory, this Tom Savage corollary. Tom Savage was the backup for Deshaun Watson when Deshaun Watson tore his ACL. So Tom Savage comes in and he's peppering DeAndre Hopkins with targets. And those opportunities are far less efficient, but Hopkins makes up for that inefficiency with the quarterback with more targets. So now that's kind of what we're realizing here. You're in a bad wide receiver room. Elijah Moore may not be bad, but everyone else is pretty bad in the Jets receiving room. But whether it's Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White, Corey Davis is the unquestioned target hog in that offense. He's going to get potentially more opportunity within the target share moving forward. So I like Corey Davis as a wide receiver 3. Michael Pittman had a blow-up game. Not really big fan of the target share in this game, but at the same time, bad weather. He's been a target hog in some other games, and he did score a touchdown, and he made some great catches too. So Michael Pittman, all on board. I was skeptical at first this year. I've seen enough though. Congrats to Leo for getting an actually valuable wide receiver. Congratulations. Good job there. Whew, Chris. What has happened to Chris? What has happened to Thanos? Got 25 points from Lamar Jackson, so you can't really blame that. The big problem here with his team, he doesn't have Chris Carson, doesn't have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb should be back this week for what we know. So you have Chubb and Damian Harris, who Damian Harris got the 25 points on 2 touchdowns. Don't want to bet on that moving forward. But Damian Harris is a good player. He's not going to get the targets in this backfield. That's going to go to Brandon Bolden. It's going to go to J.J. Taylor. It is what it is. So, you get Chubb back, but Chris Carson, he might be done. He might just be done. I mean, it's a serious neck injury that we're talking about here. You have Pete Carroll, who said that he wouldn't go on injured reserve, and then he goes on injured reserve, and I don't want anything to do with that. Nothing to do with that. If I get a running back in Seattle, it's going to be Rashad Penny or DJ Dallas, because they both are better receivers than Alex Collins, and I just think that they were easing Rashad Penny into a workload. He's been fragile before, but he is a first-round pick, so always a possibility that he usurps Alex Collins. And then, of course, DJ Dallas is the preferred receiving back in the backfield. Geno Smith doesn't look all that great. I'm shocked that they didn't get DJ Dallas any touches in the backfield. He's looked good when he's been out there, so you'd like to see them get him involved moving forward, but not great. And then the wide receivers for Chris. I mean, Marquez Callaway is for now the alpha in New Orleans, but that frankly doesn't mean much. And I was worried by what I saw from Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith did not look good yesterday. Didn't look good, right? We don't like Traquan Smith, but it does look like he has some chemistry with Jameis Winston, and you do need to account for that. So Marquez Callaway was the alpha, not the alpha anymore. I think he's better than Traquan Smith, but the Saints don't seem to realize that. But then again, Sean Payton is a good coach, so what do I know? Jalen Waddle. You cannot defend the draft pick. You cannot defend trading up to get a field-stretching wide receiver who they're using in short passing yardage situations. But that does not mean he is not valuable in fantasy. And he and Kadarius Toney are very similar players, right? Very fast, very explosive. They're not alpha wide receivers. They shouldn't be commanding a huge target share. We already saw the Kadarius Toney, right? These are the guys that break down very easily if you give them too many touches, unless you're Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, again, a specimen Z receiver. Waddle and Toney are Z receivers that cannot take on an alpha's workload. It is what it is. I like Jalen Waddle. I like him. But he would have been more like the third or fourth receiver off the board for me this year. And I believe it was Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith that went before Waddle. I think that's correct. But look, I know Terrace Marshall is in a worse offense. He's the number 3 wide receiver, as Waddle's the number 1 or 2. I don't know. I think there's a case. If you can sell high on Waddle in Dynasty, this might be the time to do it because they didn't have Will Fuller, didn't have Devontae Parker. Preston Williams has been in and out of the lineup. So it's been Waddle and Kasich. Kasich, I believe in. Kasich, I absolutely believe in. As a tight end, I think that's legitimate. Waddle, if you could get Terrace Marshall and something else for Jalen Waddle, I might do that, honestly. As crazy as that might sound, I don't know how he's going to be able to handle a large workload moving forward. Evan Ingram is the definition of just a guy, right? He's super explosive, extremely athletic tight end. You want to keep him on your rosters, right? You don't want to drop Evan Ingram. We're not doing that here. But at the same time, it's difficult to see a situation where Evan Ingram is tight end one every single week moving forward. AJ Green, yeah, look, he's been good. I don't want to say he's been great because he hasn't been, but he's been good. The issue there is Arizona's got a lot of mouths to feed. I still think Rondale Moore is a better player than AJ Green at this point. I hope to God the Cardinals realize that. Now you throw Zach Ertz into the equation. You've got Hopkins, Green, Kirk, Moore, Ertz. And then you got Chase Edmonds in the backfield, who's probably a top 5 receiving back in the sport. Yeah, I don't know. Devontae Booker, he's a perfectly fine handcuff. He's going to get you there on volume. He's not that great. But look, in total, we went through each player. I'm not going to do that for the rest of the matchups here because we're already at 30 minutes, 2 matches in here. But, Leo, for all intents and purposes, I think he had a, let's call it 85th percentile outcome for his team. And Dearness Johnson's a big part of that. And with Chubb coming back, I don't know how much of a role Dearness Johnson's going to have. As good as he looked, part of the appeal with Chubb and Hunt is that they complement each other very well. Hunt is a really good receiving back, and that was his role, whereas Chubb is the pure runner. Dearness Johnson, for as good as he looked like a pure runner. Doesn't really look like the true route runner. The true route runner you want to own in fantasy, besides Kareem Hunt in the Cleveland backfield, is Demetric Felton. Okay, that's who we want as a receiving back. So don't be surprised Demetric Felton takes over the receiving back, the 1B role to Nick Chubb, and it's not Dearness Johnson. So do keep that in mind. But Leo does go 2-0 this week. Congratulations. Still in last place, though. Still don't believe in Leo's team. It's a facade. It's fake. It's a phony. His team is still terrible, but he does have a good week here, so tip your cap. The next matchup is the matchup of the week as far as I'm concerned. It's really not, but just let me have my moment here. Young boys, 2-0, baby. Woo! Oh my gosh, what a phenomenal feeling it was to win this matchup against Badger, who was in third place and steamrolling everyone, it felt like, right? But I can't lie. Badger not having Josh Allen killed his team. Jameis Winston, who he traded for, gives you almost 18 points. Not quite. That's, not great. But he would have needed 29 points from Josh Allen to win that matchup, assuming all the other positions stay the same. Josh Allen's absolutely done it before, but, that's always a tough ask to get, more than 25 points. Then you're asking for an amazing performance. So, besides that, I felt good about this matchup. Got a lot of good production from players. Look, DeAndre Swift, I saw someone rank DeAndre Swift as the running back 2 in Dynasty, and my mind just couldn't comprehend that. I was like, what? DeAndre Swift, number 2? But think about it for a second. He's number 2 in PPR leagues right now, and he's not even getting 3/4 of the work. He's getting 2/3 of the work. Jamal Williams is still there taking carries. And DeAndre Swift is on a bad team. So there could be a scenario where all of a sudden he's getting more touchdowns to complement the receiving work because he is the preferred goal line back. It's not Jamal Williams. It's DeAndre Swift at the goal line. At that point, watch out. Watch out. I mean, in Dynasty, it's Taylor, number one. I don't think that's a close one. And then you got DeAndre Swift, the clear number two in Dynasty. The clear number two. So I'm loving what I'm getting from DeAndre Swift. Sutton and Higgins. Look, I still think Sutton's the alpha in Denver. Do not care that Jerry Jeudy's coming back. Jerry Jeudy's a very good wide receiver. Courtland Sutton is a top 15 receiver in the sport in terms of talent. I don't have a question about that whatsoever. I am convinced. I am fully sold on Courtland Sutton being a top 15 wide receiver in the sport. And he might be more in the 20 to 25 range for wide receivers for the rest of the season with Jerry Jeudy back. But I think this mostly hurts Noah Fant and it mostly hurts Tim Patrick. I don't think it's going to hurt Sutton as much. And that's not me being biased. I truly do believe that, Noah Fant took on an increased workload and he looked good doing it. He absolutely looked good doing it. But at the same time, they don't want to overwork Noah Fant. He's had some injury concerns in the past. They've got Alberto, not even going to try to pronounce that last name, but he's another good tight end that they have. So they want to use two tight end sets as much as they can. So I like Courtland Sutton moving forward. I'm going to skip around here a little bit. And I do want to talk about Elijah Mitchell for a second. So, Kyle Shanahan, we think of as this brilliant mind, and I think he is for the most part. I don't think he's an idiot. Clearly not. But he might just be overrated. It just might be the case. He might be overrated. And I don't know. You have Elijah Mitchell that has that amazing first drive, an incredible college producer, super, super explosive running back, top 3 explosive running back in this year's draft class. Go to playerprofiler.com. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. And he has this Bill Cow role, and he rushes for over 100 yards on less than 20 carries. I mean, what a revelation. What a revelation that he is better than Trey Sermon. I said in my nickname for Elijah Mitchell before the season started that he would score more fantasy points than Trey Sermon. And people were looking at me like I had 10 eyes, right? They couldn't fathom that a 6th round pick on the same team as Trey Sermon would get more points 2021. But alas, here we are. I was correct. I'm victory lapping that. I traded for him. Wasn't even the focal point of that trade. I just kind of got him as a throw-in, and boy, am I happy. I'm very, very satisfied. But all of this to say that to immediately after that first drive, go 3 passes with Jimmy Garoppolo, who sucks, and all of them be incomplete passes in pouring rain, and to pass the ball as much as they did after seeing that those 3 passes didn't work out, I really cannot fathom that. I cannot fathom how much they threw the ball. It's fine to mix in the throw, but way too much passing for Jimmy Garoppolo in poor weather, and not to mention JaMychal Hasty being the 3rd down back. I mean, the dude is not that good. He's a fine receiving back. He does have a little bit of elusiveness. He doesn't drop the ball, okay? But Elijah Mitchell showed a 3 down back skill set in college. He was a very good receiving back. Not great in college from receiving perspective, but good enough. Absolutely good enough. And during the Senior Bowl, really showed out as a receiver. I don't understand why they don't use him as a receiver. If he is used as a receiver with his explosiveness and the workload he gets, we're looking at a running back 2 for the rest of the season. I have no doubt in my mind. No doubt. I'm fully convinced that Elijah Mitchell is the best running back in San Francisco. So we move over to Badgers team. I mentioned Jameis Winston and Josh Allen. Kudos to Badger for getting Fournette and Jacobs for 80 cents on the dollar. I mean, job well done. Job well done, Badger. You had the breakout from A.J. Brown. fantastic. Dallas Goedert showing what he can do without Zach Ertz, getting almost 14 points. You had a bad week for Mark Andrews. You kind of tossed that to the side. Although I will say, I feel like there's been a lot of instances this year where Mark Andrews has not lived up to expectation. He had that one huge 50-point week or whatever it was, right? He's had a few down weeks, though. And with Rashad Bateman now into the equation, Marquise Brown doing what he does, you better hope to God that the running game continues to suck for Baltimore. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be a run-heavy offense. And then at that point, you're relying on Andrews or Brown or Bateman to produce on the air with what's left. I don't know how I feel about that. DJ Moore, what a weird season it's been for him. And what a weird year it's been for the Panthers. I mean, shame on the Panthers for thinking that Sam Darnold was actually good. We said it. I said it. I know I said it. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I said it. The Panthers' strength of schedule to begin the year was an absolute cupcake, right? Going up against three horrendous teams, the Jets, the Texans in week 3. I forgot who they played in week 2. Now I got to go look it up. Who did the Panthers play in week 2? The Saints. Okay. So the Saints weren't as bad, but I believe that was also the game where they had a majority of that team out because they had COVID. Yes, that was the game. So each time they've gone out there the first 3 weeks, they played a team that was either bad or depleted, and Sam Darnold looks good, and he's rushing the ball. He's not passing. He's rushing the ball. Keep that in mind. Then he goes to a situation where it's a shootout in Dallas. He has to pass the ball. That's where things start to go downhill. And it's gone downhill ever since. He was never graded that highly this year in passing at any point. And now that he's playing not even great defenses, league average defenses, he has converted himself into a pumpkin. So again, DJ Moore, what do we do with him? You still start him, but Robbie Anderson is done. Dan Arnold is not fantasy relevant. And Terrace Marshall, it pains me that he is not fantasy relevant this year. I had him in a lot of best ball leagues as kind of a 8th, 9th round flyer, super athletic profile. He's a true alpha profile who produced with, his limited time being healthy last year at LSU. So pains me that he is not fantasy relevant this year. But DJ Moore, still a wide receiver 1-2 on the border, on the fringe there. And then AJ Brown, I mean, we knew this was coming. He's just too talented to not break out this year. Okay, he had the Chipotle food poisoning. Okay, screw Chipotle. We don't like it. Bad for your stomach. Always makes my stomach upset. So not a fan of that. AJ Brown, I hope you've learned your lesson. Your stomach is important. We don't want you to be underperformed because you had a bad burrito bowl from Chipotle. Get out of here with that. I mean, outside of the mediocre quarterback and horrible defensive performance by the Eagles from Badger, the team wasn't awful. I mean, Mark Andrews, 8 points. You'll take that as a floor from a tight end. Bigger floor than TJ Hawkinson, who had a good game, but it's just kind of a lackluster performance. And then Jacobs is injured, and that's not a great situation there. So I'm not worried about Badger, but I still don't think he's a top 3 or 4 team. I think he's more in the 5 to 7 range, somewhere around there. But Josh Allen not being in the game this week absolutely hurt him. No question about it. Young boys, 2-0. Whoop, whoop! Next matchup. Ryan and Dan. Here's the thing about the Chiefs that scares the hell out of me. That defense is so bad. It's so bad that it does not allow the Chiefs to develop a running game whatsoever. And you could just say, oh, but you don't need a running game with Patrick Mahomes. You'd love to have one, right? You'd rather have a running game than not. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire wasn't getting it done, even though he had those 100-yard games. He had that one efficient game. He's still fumbling the ball. Darrell Williams, Haj, congratulations on your 2 touchdowns last week. He came back to earth this week and wasn't efficient besides those touchdowns last week and wasn't efficient here. Didn't really produce. Darrell Williams is a trotter out there. He's not explosive, not athletic. He's got to get into the end zone to be productive. It is what it is. Ryan's running backs are going to be a serious problem, though. I mean, for such a loaded team with Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Pat Mahomes, I mean, holy crap, is he in trouble? I have no confidence, absolutely no confidence in Ryan's running backs moving forward. Now, the rest of his team is still so good that he's going to finish as a top 4 team by default. But this is a couple of weeks now where if Mahomes and Hill don't hit, you need Mike Evans to produce. Of all the really stacked teams in this league, I think Ryan's is the worst because he has the least amount of depth. McCaffrey's out, okay? You have Gaskin and Melvin Gordon. Even Melvin Gordon as your running back too, you don't feel great about. So Ryan, very clear candidate like Derek to go get a running back at the trade deadline. I'd love to see him get Kareem Hunt. I think that would be a perfect fit after he comes back off IR. But getting back to this matchup, I mean, Pat Mahomes, 5 points. When the defense knows that you're passing, that's what the point I was getting to at the very beginning, talking about this matchup. When they know you're passing, it does become easier. Even if you're Patrick Mahomes in the Chiefs offense, it does become easier to defend against because you don't have to stack the box. You can if you want. But in the case of Tennessee, who has a pretty solid defensive line, you really don't need to stack the box because your defensive line can get to the quarterback. And that's what happened. So, going against the Giants moving forward, I think it's a rebound game for Mahomes and Hill. I don't know, to be honest with you. Mike Evans, 3 touchdowns. Congratulations, I guess. Like Mike Evans is like a top 7 or 8 wide receiver right now, and he's doing it off off an insane touchdown rate. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Gronkowski's been out. Antonio Brown has been out for a couple of games. Those have been the instances where Mike Evans has exploded for production. Okay. This is not me saying he's not a good wide receiver. I don't think he's as explosive as he was early on in his career. I stand true to that. But when you have Brown and Gronkowski hurt and it's just Godwin and Evans taking the rest of the snaps and the target share, not giving Tyler Johnson anything, of course Mike Evans is going to do well. So I don't know about Mike Evans. If you have him in seasonal leagues, this is the time to sell high. If you have Mike Evans, this touchdown rate is not sustainable. The targets have been there. Targets have absolutely been there. But if someone's offering you, I don't even know. If you got Brandon Cooks in a running back, like if you need a running back and someone offered you Brandon Cooks and Chase Edmonds, for instance, for Mike Evans, I would do that. Remember, the Tom Savage corollary not only applies to Brandon Cooks, it applies to, who did I bring up earlier? Who did I bring up about this before? I hate that I'm forgetting who I brought this up about before. Okay, I forget. But I brought someone else up besides Brandon Cooks with the Tom Savage corollary before. The number one case of the Tom Savage corollary in 2021 is Brandon Cooks, right? He's got like 30% target share. The team sucks. They're passing the ball all the time. Last 2 or 3 weeks haven't really been there, but stay the course with Brandon Cooks. So if you got Brandon Cooks and Chase Edmonds for Mike Evans, I think that's a case where you're selling high on Mike Evans. I would do that. So players in that range, absolutely no question. Rest of this game, there's really nothing to write home about. Marquise Brown made an amazing play for a touchdown pass, reception, I should say, on Sunday. But yeah, the rest of this, I mean, when you're starting Mark Ingram, that tells me everything I need to know about your team. The emergence of Michael Carter might make Dan a top 10 team instead of the worst team in the league. Because he still has Antonio Brown, still has Chris Godwin. You know, he's got some players, but those are prime trade candidates as well. And he's also got Kareem Hunt on the bench. So if he keeps this team, which again, I don't see happening, if he keeps them around, it's not the worst team in the league anymore. I am not afraid to say that. But if he does what he should do, this is the worst team in the league. And that's okay. We knew this going in. You know, anything above 12th place for Dan was going to be looked at as a success. It is what it is. But Ryan comes away with the win. Doesn't get the PF win, though. You know, that 1-1, extremely disappointing week for Ryan, even though he beats Dan. Very disappointing. Next matchup, Vinny and Haj. Vinny wins by almost 40 points. Doesn't get the 50 piece. I think he had a record for the most 50 pieces in consecutive weeks. Excuse me. And Jalen Hurts. We need to talk about Jalen Hurts. I hate bad real-life quarterbacks who are good for fantasy. Last year, funny enough, it was Carson Wentz who was god-awful in real life, right? Terrible. But he did put up some quarterback one weeks because they were playing garbage time all the time. Jalen Hurts is the same version of Carson Wentz. He's terrible from quarters 1 to 3. But it's that fourth quarter where, crap, we're down 28 points. We got to get some touchdowns. We got to throw the ball. And then all of a sudden, 30-yard pass to Dallas Goedert, 20-yard run, scrambles for 2 yards into the end zone. I mean, okay, congratulations. So Jalen Hurts is like the quarterback 2 right now in fantasy. Makes me want to pull my freaking hair out. I have no idea what to do with Jalen Hurts in Dynasty because he offers this elite floor despite being a bad quarterback. He has this elite floor because of his rushing ability. And because they're playing garbage time for a full quarter, you got to throw the ball the entire quarter. But with that being said, they are a prime candidate to draft Malik Willis next year. Imagine Malik Willis, who might just be a better version of Jalen Hurts. Imagine that on the Eagles with Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and Quez Watkins, and that could be fun. That could be fun. More accurate version of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts had 10% more accuracy. I'd have no problem with him. No problem whatsoever. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating to say the least that he is so good at fantasy because in real life, he's a bottom 10 quarterback. And I have no doubt about that. The rest of Vinny's team is stacked. I don't really need to talk anymore about it. Julio Jones might be on the bench for Vinny next week, and that's scary. I mean, the fact that Julio Jones, who's still startable on maybe 10 other teams in this league, might be on his bench next week, that's wild. I love that Hunter Henry somehow got his way into Vinny's lineup, though. I know there are a lot of buys in week 7, people calling it buy-mageddon. But, you know, the fact that Hunter Henry is fantasy relevant after being so bad and inefficient last year, you just got to hand it to the guy. You got to hand it to the mailman. He looks like the guy that he just looks like he came out of the office. I don't know what more to say. I mean, he just does not look like a football player, but damn, he makes some good plays. He does. He makes good plays. So, Vinny's team, Kamara, Metcalf, Henry, Hurts, Fant, who, again, I don't think is going to be as productive as he has been. Not going to get as many targets, but still, I mean, my God, what a team. What a team. Favorites for this year by far. I don't think it's a question. He had James Robinson out of bye, and he still has this lineup. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. So I talk about the importance of a really good starting lineup, but it's also the bench. And Vinny absolutely has the bench. No question about that. Haj, I also think is a very deep team. I might place him number 2 in my rankings moving forward for the rest of the season. An uncharacteristically slow week for Aaron Jones. I'm writing that off as just an anomaly. Still very efficient, still involved in the passing game, not worried. Daryl Williams, I said it before, he's a trotter. He fell into the end zone 2 times against the who was it? Was it the Washington football team? Yeah, it was the Washington football team. Fell into the end zone 2 times, caught a few passes. Congrats, Haj, on that. But this is what he is. He's not efficient at all. He's not fast. He doesn't read the holes well whatsoever. He's really there to be a pass-catching, pass-blocking back. He's the third down back. He's taken that role from Clyde Edwards-Helaire when he's healthy. That's it. He's not a 3-down back. He's being misused. And if the Chiefs think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is really hurt, I think they're one of the prime candidates to go get Marlon Mack. That's why I think you've heard about Marlon Mack, because this injury to Clyde Edwards-Helaire might be worse than what we're being led on to believe. Very real possibility. Marlon Mack is a far superior running back to Daryl Williams in almost every aspect besides pass blocking. That's it. Robert Woods, Deebo Samuel, yak monsters. We like them. Robert Woods not getting the target share that we thought he'd get. Cooper Kupp has really usurped him on the rankings, but every year I feel like it's been Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. So next year at this rate, it'll be Robert Woods. Deebo Samuel, look, Jimmy Garoppolo loves him. And the one thing I'm worried about, though, is that they're not getting Brandon Ayuk any opportunities. And if you go back and you watch the All-22 film of Brandon Ayuk, there were plenty of opportunities for Jimmy Garoppolo to throw the ball to him. I know people are so done with Brandon Ayuk and Allen Robinson, but these guys are getting open. Okay, Brandon Ayuk is creating separation. He has an opportunity to catch the ball. Okay, people say, oh, he dropped the punt. He dropped the punt, so he must be terrible. He must suck. Okay, that's the most lazy analysis I've ever seen. Did you see Deebo Samuel drop 3 of those passes? Of course he did, because it's not convenient to the argument, right? You had players drop the ball in that San Francisco and Indianapolis game, but Brandon Ayuk drops a punt, which is much more difficult to catch in the rain than a pass. I mean, get out of here. So my point in bringing up Brandon Ayuk is that because they, for whatever reason, don't want to throw the ball to him, even though he's getting wide open sometimes, Deebo Samuel is taking up all that target share. And with George Kittle out, even more target share. Now, if there's one thing that I don't like about Deebo Samuel, and the one thing, with this workload, he has never stayed healthy. He's never been fully healthy for a full season when taking on this kind of workload. I love Deebo Samuel. I think he's more than just a guy you throw a short pass to and watch him work his yak magic. I think he's a legitimately awesome wide receiver that can be an alpha when healthy. But he has to stay healthy. And he has been healthy. And I love that. But this trend of him getting 30, 35% of the target share each game, I know they didn't throw the ball a lot in this game, but that's a concerning trend for his health. So, I don't know. I hope he stays healthy. I would love to see Deebo Samuel do very well. Coming from a Brandon Ayuk owner, I would love to see Deebo Samuel be healthy for the entire year. Can he do it? To be determined. Zach Ertz. So Zach Ertz was always going to get traded. We knew that from the offseason. He wanted to be traded. They worked something out where he would play as an audition for another team. We all thought it'd be Buffalo. Well, Buffalo. Dawson Knox is done. Psych, Dawson Knox is awesome. And Zach Ertz goes to Arizona. This is a little bit misleading. He had that one really long 50-plus yard reception for a touchdown. I'm not trying to say Zach Ertz is bad, but again, when we brought up A.J. Green, it's Ertz, Green, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, Chase Edmonds. I mean, there's just too many mouths to feed in this offense to get consistent production out of Zach Ertz. And with how little they have been passing the ball, granted, a lot of it has to do with the matchups. It's been very run-oriented because they're well ahead in these matchups, but that's the one concern. What's the target share going to be for Zach Ertz? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But the fact he was explosive, the fact he looked the part, we love to see that. Tyler Lockett, I mean, holy crap. What a disaster it has been since Russell Wilson's been out. Tyler Lockett, you cannot start Tyler Lockett while Geno Smith is a starter. You can't do it. You can't do it. The target share with Geno Smith is not there, and he's also not getting the air yards. See, target share is important, but the air yard share is as important, if not more important. And the air yard share for Tyler Lockett is not there. Okay? He's not a factor when Geno Smith is out there. Geno Smith does not look his way. Okay? That could be an indictment on Geno Smith. It could just be that Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett have special chemistry. But you can't start him. Tyler Boyd, same thing. When T. Higgins and Jamar Chase combined for what was it, like 25 targets, and CJ Uzoma probably should be getting more targets. Again, it's not that I don't like Tyler Boyd. I like him as a player, but fantasy, I don't know how confident I would be starting him. Now, as a flex, if you get 8 points of your flex, okay, not a complete bust. You'll take that. You'll take 8 points from your flex, worst case scenario. But not someone I'm excited to start about moving forward. Cardinals defense might just be really good. I was worried about this secondary. It's a makeshift secondary, and not a big fan of it going into the year. But this front seven was really good. Okay, even against the Texans, who have an average offensive line, they did a lot of damage. Got a lot of dropbacks onto Davis Mills, a lot of pressure on him. Not necessarily a ton of sacks, but they turned the ball over. They got a few sacks. They pressured him. They pressured Davis Mills. You love to see that. So, big fan of the Cardinals defense moving forward. But, yeah, overall, a really disappointing outing by Haas because of Aaron Jones, who, again, is an outlier situation. But Darrell Williams, Tyler Lockett, Tyler Boyd, ugh, all right, not a big fan. But still do think when Russell Wilson comes back, that Haas will be a top 2 team with Tyler Lockett coming back. I do like his depth. Last matchup, and my God, as someone who owns Pete's picks 2 out of the next 3 years, I was singing and dancing to any kind of pop song I could listen to yesterday. 68 points. Couldn't even reach 69 points. Oh, man. I love being right. Okay, there's plenty of instances where I'm wrong. I admit that. I get a lot of stuff wrong, just like I get a lot of stuff right. But my God, does it feel good to get this one right? I get that Darren Waller was out for this game. If Darren Waller put up 20 points, Pete would have still had 80 points. Sam Darnold is terrible. He's terrible. And, oh, God. He's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. Pete misses Russell Wilson. I'm going to give him that one. Okay, he's depleted there. Kirk Cousins on a bye. But Sam Darnold's droppable. I don't know what more to say. He's good for maybe 25 yards on the ground against average defenses. And the Giants are an average defense at best. and just cut Sam Darnold to pieces in this matchup. PJ Walker came in. Okay. PJ Walker was terrible in his own right, but Sam Darnold, ugh, we thought he was bad. Then he kind of tricked us for 3 weeks, but he has confirmed over the last 3 weeks since then, 4 weeks really, he is indeed a bad quarterback and should not be starting for an NFL team. Daryl Henderson, this is a lot more indicative of what he has been in his career. Not all that efficient with his touches, not all that involved in the receiving game. I still think this is an outlier for him. I do think he is a top 15 back for the rest of the season. But if he continues to have performances like this and Cam Akers continues to look good in rehab, well, you don't need me to tell you how I think that goes. You know how I think that goes. The funniest part, Robbie Anderson, 4 points on 9 targets. He's getting targets and he's getting 1 yard per target in terms of productivity. I mean, it's so comically bad. We've come back to 2019 Robbie Anderson just being bad at football. I mean, it's so funny to me. So funny. But he's droppable in seasonal leagues. He's done. He's done. He might break off a touchdown here or there. He might get you 9 targets, but holy crap, is he bad? I would love to see them give these targets that he's getting, give them to Terrace Marshall, give them to Dan Arnold, give them to explosive playmakers who aren't just going to clog up the middle of the field like Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson, the difference with him is he is explosive, he is fast, but he does not create separation as well as he should. And I just, it's not good. It's not good. Robbie Anderson, Pete just traded for him. That was an irresponsible trade. It was a bad trade, and that continues a trend of what I think has been bad trades for Pete. He knows it, though. I don't need to, lament that anymore. But Robbie Anderson, done for this season. No one else to really talk about. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins has not gone over 100 yards this season, which really does speak to that really big receiving room that they have. But he does have 7 touchdowns. Again, touchdown rate typically is not sticky, but it is DeAndre Hopkins. He is an outlier. He's a top 5 receiver in football right now. So it might just be sticky for him. It might just very well be sticky for him. The funniest part, though, is that Parker did not win a median game. He did not get that median win. And he's still 50-pieced Parker. He's still 50-piece Pete. Vinny, we might need to look into this, but is this the first time that someone's been 50-pieced by a team that didn't score above the median for the week? It might be. It might be. But holy crap. Carson Wentz is still... I'm not sold on Carson Wentz. He had some good moments, though. His ankles do look better. I got to give him that. And he started to look better over the past couple of weeks. But, I mean, you saw some of those throws in the game against San Francisco. He still makes some boneheaded, stupid mistakes. And, 6 years into his career, you just cannot be making these kinds of mistakes. Parker is in a good position because he could very easily upgrade his team because all he really needs is a quarterback. He's getting George Kittle back soon. He's got the wide receivers. He's got some running backs. I mean, I don't like Devontae Freeman being in there as the running back too, but of course some buys mixed in there why he's in the lineup. But I said it before. I think there's a case for Parker to be a playoff team. I think he's currently number 7. He'd have to usurp Andy, Ryan, or Badger in the standings. I absolutely think he could usurp one of them. There absolutely is a scenario where that happens. Does it happen? I don't know. Cordero Patterson, he had the insane touchdown rate. Again, not sticky. He had several touchdowns in the past couple of games. He was used primarily as a running back, which makes no sense to me. he's so good as a running back and receiver. You got to mix and match. I think they criminally misunderused Mike Davis in that game against Miami. The fact they won, I think, is a testament to the defense that got a couple of key stops, and then also Matt Ryan, who made some beautiful throws to Kyle Pitts. But they criminally misused Mike Davis. Cordero Patterson as a pure rusher, not a fan of that. I was a little worried by that, but I do think they will get Patterson involved in the passing game moving forward. Ja'Marr Chase. Yeah, he might just be the wide receiver one. So Parker has a really fascinating team. He might have the wide receiver one in fantasy, Ja'Marr Chase. He might have the running back one in fantasy, in Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you always have a chance to make the playoffs when you've got the best dynasty running back and receiver on your team. And George Kittle, who wasn't even in the lineup because he's on the injured reserve. I mean, am I wrong? I think a lot of people thought I was crazy when I alluded to the fact that Parker might be a playoff team a couple of weeks back, but I'm sorry. I've seen enough from Ja'Marr Chase to know that he is a bona fide star. Now, look, I said in the training camp in the first couple of weeks of the season that they still should have drafted Penei Sewell. I'm at least willing to reconsider that, but in the grand scheme of things, I think you take a generational talent at tackle and then worry about wide receiver. So I still think they should have taken Penei Sewell, but you can't deny the results at this point. So I'm not going to try to sit here and say it was an irresponsible pick. I still personally would have gone with Penei Sewell, but you at least have a very strong case for Ja'Marr Chase at that point. The fact that he was even being considered along the likes of Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle in the draft is just ludicrous. His profile is one of the best that we've ever seen coming out of college since Julio Jones. I mean, that's the kind of talent we're talking about. He's in that Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones group of receivers coming out of the draft. Not as big as either of those guys, and that might be the one thing. He's not that great contested catch guy, but he's so athletic that he creates elite separation where he may never have to have a contested catch to be productive. So that's something to keep in mind. Nothing really else to write home about in this game. Yeah, look, I think Pete's team was obviously better than 68 points. I mean, it was projected to be 124. Still not great. I do think Pete is a bottom 3 team right now because, as we saw, the fact that he has to go out and trade for Hayden Hurst because, Jared Cook on a bye, granted, but the fact he has to go out and trade for a tight end, give up a 3rd round pick to do so, I don't know. Everything needs to go right for Pete to make the playoffs. Everything needs to go right. Everyone needs to stay healthy. And in the NFL, you cannot predict that. You cannot project every player in your lineup to be healthy. If for some crazy reason Pete's team stays healthy, it's a playoff team. I'll be the first to admit that. It's a playoff team with the starting lineup he has. But assuming that more injuries come about, which I think he's been one of the healthiest teams in the league so far this year, and he still has this record, it's not great. So Pete could be a seller. He also could buy. Pete kind of confuses me with his strategy sometimes. But you know what? He won the championship last year. All right. So I know I'm going to get that slack in the channel. So I'll just say it now so it doesn't come up later. But it's not looking that great for Pete this year. I'll just leave it at that. All right, an hour and 10 minutes. That went a lot shorter than I thought it could. We're lucky it didn't go to an hour and a half here. But nonetheless, lot of not all that close games in week 7, week 8, with a lot of teams coming back from bye. You hope that a lot of them can come back and be competitive matchups. I think we're on pace to have another episode tomorrow. I don't know that for a fact, but we will certainly try our best. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys listening in on this most recent episode of the PNC Dynasty podcast. Vinny, if we could name it the Sam Darnold Pumpkin episode, I would appreciate that. But if not, no worries. But that will do it for this particular episode of the PNC Dynasty podcast show. We'll see you guys next time.